All right, time to get down to Mr. GLOAT podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today, this is the Undisputed Minimumweight Championship story. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm recording this, I am recording this as like it's already as of it's right now. It's already the 7th right now. Today's Thursday, the 7th, the first week of this month right now. So at this moment, even though these episodes I'm releasing part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5 of the Road to the Undisputed Minimumweight Championship are being released on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. The first part will be the Lineal weight champion, which is what you're watching right now. The second part on the 26th, which is my birthday at 27 years old, will be the WBC champion. On the 27th of Wednesday will be, it might be the WBO belt. Maybe it might be the WBO belt. Just saying. And probably on the 28th might be maybe the IBF. I would say like the WBO or IBF, one of those two parts will be on the 27th and 28th, and the final part will be the WBA, which I might get a full another 2-part hour episode out of that. So because there's two types of championships, there's the regular and super. So that just depends on how it might be a 6-part documentary. And as for the Ring magazine, well, yet again, I wouldn't carry it much to it that it is because a lot of people don't talk about it. But yeah, guys, the reason I'm doing these episodes like 20 days away or like under 3 weeks before these videos are uploaded is, well, there's not a lot of entertainment stuff going on, and I might as well make these podcasts right now instead of later just to cut the deadline because there's not a lot of crazy stuff happening. I've already done a podcast today, uploaded it. Well, the next one is on the 11th, which is the UFC thing. And on the 14th, I'm already going to do another random video that might not do much about it because I'm already trying to focus on Mizuki Hiruda and her WBO Super Flyweight Championship and also the Mozatama and Dillian White. And then probably on the 21st, another Mr. GLOAT podcast, which might be the last one I'll make because these 5 parts were already created. Well, to be honest, I really can't say much about it because at this moment, guys, the story is I think I know how to open this up. So before I start the podcast, which is chapter 1 of the Lineal weight champion, let me see if I can press this down or do it. I'm not going to peel this off. I'm just going to press this first and see how it works. Okay, I think I'm going to pay attention. I want to get a perfect angle so you guys can see this because I messed it up the last time. Wait, is there a ball in there? Oh, it's kind of tricky. I actually thought I saw a ball in there. Okay, I guess I have to peel it off. Okay, I guess it won't work if you do that. Okay. I guess it won't work if I do it this way. Oh, yeah, I can't. So I do have to unpeel this thing off. Like, guys, I've already drank one before. I drank the red one before. This one is actually the melon flavor, which is weird. It's melon flavor? It's actually Ramune, but technically, guys, I'm not sponsoring this thing. I just want to show you viewers how awesome it is to press this down and pop it up because the last time I did it was ridiculous. Just to let you guys know, as I'm recording this episode, I might be recording another one, multiple episodes today. And I've done Shotgun Saturday Night one. So what else can you say? Okay, so here we go. Okay. Okay, let me do this. Okay, let me do it. Trying to get this thing. Okay, so it won't work if I pop it like that. Ah, there we go. There we go. Thank God I clipped. Oh, okay. Thank God I clipped my nails. Woo! Look at that. broken apart easily. That's what I was talking about. Cheers to melon flavor. I'm getting a good smell to it. It looks like an apple. Like I said before, guys, the marble ball gives me a hard time because every time I try to drink it, the liquid stops. Like, watch. You see what I mean? Because when I try to pour it down, the marble ball... the marble here gets it stuck, so I can't drink it. I have to suck it or something. Can I suck it? Nope, you can't suck it. That stinks. But that was actually pretty fun seeing that pop like that. All right, guys, it's been already 6 minutes. Jeez, man, I am such a bad person in the podcast. Okay. So, guys, let's get down to business. So, guys, this episode I'm just going to take this one down as quickly as possible because this one, there's not a lot of champions here, to be honest. So, let's get to it. I got to stop eating spicy stuff before I do podcasts. I said I got to stop eating spicy things before I do a podcast. It gets my throat messed up. So, guys, the light heavyweight, cruiserweight, and heavyweight championship have undisputed champions in the 4-belt era. And they do. And the cruiserweight and heavyweight were all by Alexander Usyk, and the others are Beterbiev and Bivol. And for Canelo Alvarez, super middleweight, well, obviously, I'm sure we can already tell that was... Well, technically, not one has become champion since. Even though Jermaine Taylor's and Bernard Hawkins were champs in the middleweight, but it was still the 3-belt era. But count it for what you will. Yeah. Jermell Charlo, light middleweight, and so on. And I know, guys, there were undisputed champions back in the old days during 1921 because the NABA and the NYSAC were the championship belts at the time until 1963 when the WBC came in and they had the WBA and they were undisputed until 1983 the IBF came and then 2007 the WBO came. So I understand. Yes, I get it. So there were undisputed champions. Terrence Crawford was in 2023 when he was welterweight, first ever. And then, of course, by super lightweight, Terrence Crawford and Josh Taylor were the first to do them, to become champion. The lightweight division never brought in a lot of success to it. Even when Parnell Whitaker was a 3-belt champ in 90 and 92, which was hard for him to even retain out those titles in this couple years until Devin Haney did in 2022 for 4-belt. And then you go down, way down. The super featherweight only had Ted Morgan, Benny Bass from 1927 and the 1929 when before and after the stock market crash, they were in the 2-belt era. And then you had some fighters like Gabriel Eldorel from the Filipino to become the 2-belt in 1963. And then Yoshiaka Numata was in 67 when he was champion. He lost it months later against Hiroshi Kobayashi in 67, retained it, and then he refused to fight someone by 69 and he stripped it, and that was it. There was no more champions in the super featherweight, which it was okay. It's okay. Not all can be like that. The featherweight, well, they had champs back then. They have a lot from Tony Canzanelli, Henry Armstrong, and Joey Archie, Willie Peps, Sandy Sadler, and Davey Moore. And then Sugar Ramos and Vincent Saldivar in 64. He won the champ and retired in 67, and that was it. And the super bantamweight, 0 until Naoya Inoue took it away in December of 2023, and he still holds it to this day. The bantamweight, well, Naoya Inoue actually broke the long record until a guy named Enrique Pinder was the undisputed two-belt champion in 1972, and then retired those belts and, well, won the belt in January of 73. Yeah, almost 50 years until December of 2022, and Naoya Inoue won it. And then you go down, down, down. The lower weight divisions are hard to be undisputed. The super flyweight has 0, but I think Jesse the Bam Rodriguez, considering he is fighting in November against another guy that's holding on to another piece of the title, which I hope he wins, because Jesse Rodriguez, I hope to God he is going to fight for champ, because he's taken on WBA champion Fernando Daniel to the belt, and I just hope he'll fight the guy for the IBF belt to become undisputed, because that would be amazing. The flyweight division only had some fighters in the 1920s, a couple from Pancho Villa, Fidel Labarba, and then before the stock market crash came, he retired. By 1937, they had Benny Lynch that was champion for some, and then years later, they had Jackie Peterson to become champion for 4 or so years, but then he retired the belts in 47. That same year, Rinty Monaghan was champ by 50, and then Dada Marino, Yoshio Shirai, and then Pascual Perez, the record holder of those titles, retained the belt from 1954 to 60 9 times until he lost against Ponne Kingpech from Thailand. And then fighting Harada, defeated that guy in 62, and then lost it in a rematch against him the next year in January. And then the belt was stripped. But not only because the WBC belt was a new title then, so they gave him the belt, inaugural. He lost it against a guy like Hiroyuki Ibihara, but he won it back again. And then he lost against someone else in 65, and, well, the guy never fought the belt. And then some other guy out of nowhere in 66 the next year became champ and held on the belt until he retired in 68 for good. Not one light champion, not one flyweight champion has been champ since. And then you have the light flyweight division that's even harder enough to find who is going to be in the division. It's an underrated weight class. But then you have the mini flyweight division, or the strawweight division, or the minimum weight division, which I like to call it. One of the 3 weight classes that's not undisputed. Super flyweight, light flyweight, and minimum weight, and if you want to count bridgerweight, count it, are the only weight classes, but they don't have the WBO or IBF yet, so let's not count it. But those 3 weight classes are still the only 3 that do not have an undisputed champion in any of the eras of boxing. God, I love this drink. That has to be one of my favorite drinks ever. I love the melon flavor. But guys, when did the minimum weight came? Well, in 1987, the minimum weight division came out, was different. Known as the mini flyweight, or as they also call it, is the super autumn weight, or the paperweight. There's a lot of it, from mini flyweight, also known as paperweight, minimum weight, straw weight, autumn weight. It's ridiculous. So, of course, guys, in professional boxing, the minimum weight division is no more than 105 pounds, relatively new weight category for professionals, first inaugurated in the major of sanctioning bodies between 1987 to 1990. So it took about a few years until all the belts were together. So here's the thing. Is there more to this than meets the eye? Well, guys, at the time, there was a minimum weight division that was introduced in the Summer Olympics in 68, and under the name light flyweight, they were already putting the division was not recognized in 4 of the most widely regarded sanctioning bodies until the IBF came in 1987. But we're going to save that one for later, just for later. I do want to talk about the lineal weight belt, Because when did the lineal weight belt came? Well, it came around the same time when the IBF belt came. When it was later recognized back in October 1987 when the WBC belt came. Because the WBA belt came in January of 1988, and then in August 89, the WBO belt came. The Ring magazine did not begin ranking at the time, but let's be honest, guys, the Ring magazine belt was deactivated until the New Year's of December 31st, 1989, and it never came back until 2002 or so. So take that for what you will. And keep this in mind, guys, the minimum weight belt it did not rank until 1997 under the straw weight, but it was named champion until 2024 for Oscar Collazo, knockout CP Freshmart. So technically there's not a lot of information you can talk about there. So that's why I'm not going to talk about the Ring magazine, because there might not be a lot to talk about, because there's not. So what happened in the late of 1987? Well, guys, the lineal weight title came in when the WBC belt came. And believe me, guys, it came to an end. Because back in 1987, in October, ladies and gentlemen, history was here. Where my Thumbiratham, a fighter boxing out of where else, went to Japan to fight against a guy named Hiroki Ioka. At the time, guys, Hiroka in July won the Japanese mini flyweight division, which gave him an opportunity to fight for a title in Osaka, Japan, in the University Kinki Auditorium. And he won the fight by 12 rounds of decision without no trouble whatsoever. He went into the fight easily to get the job done, and he did. He wins the inaugural belt. Now, guys, the WBC belt and the lineal weight belt would be together until 99. So I'm only going to review the WBC belt only half into this episode, because the lineal weight belt and the WBC belt would be together until the end of the decade. And you'll understand why. Because the lineal weight belt has never been fought in the 21st century, not once. Keep that in mind. It would be together for a long time for the WBC and the lineal weight belt to be together until they separated in 1999. Why? I think you already know why. So I'm only going to talk about the WBC belt in this video, even though the story, this chapter is the lineal weight belt. But when I talk about the next episode tomorrow, I'm going to start off the WBC belt where I left off, just to ignore everything in the 20th century, just to make this podcast quicker. So keep that in mind. So, yeah, Hiroki defeats this Thailand fighter by dominating out the fight in his 9th professional fight at 18 years old, and he just became champion without a doubt. We come in January the 31st, live in Osaka. He takes on Kyung Yun Lee, a tough, good fighter, a man with an undefeated record, and he was actually, fun fact, the IBF World Minimumweight Champion for the inaugural belt in 87. Reasons why he vacated the belt just to fight against Hiroki? Well, we're going to get to that, because I think it goes to show you, viewers, why this episode has no undisputed champions in the weight class division. And it actually upsets me to this day. But guys, we're going to talk about this guy, Kyung Yun Lee, in just a little bit in this episode. Because he's going to meet another guy in 1991. he might think his loss by this round 12 TKO in the final round of this fight, considering how both fighters had two judges evening them up together, 104 to 105 from each of the judges giving them favor, with one judge giving it 105 to 105, a draw. Believe me, guys, this was a close fight coming into the 12th round. It's just too bad halfway through, Hiroki would score out a knockout at 136 just to win the fight. Believe me, it's shocking. But the real test, ladies and gentlemen, came when in June the 5th, 1988, he took on Napa Kiatwanchai, a Thailand fighter that made history. Now, guys, what do I have to say about this guy named Napa Kiatwanchai? Now, let me look this up on Google Dictionary just so I won't make this mistake again, just so if I said his name right. Oh my gosh, get that off. How do you pronounce his name? In Hungarian? Yeah.
Napa Kiatwanchai.
Kiatwanchai.
Napa Kiatwanchai.
So, Napa Kiatwanchai. What do I have to say about this guy? Guys, Napa Kiatwanchai is like a rendition of a Thailand fighter known as Jake Paul. Now, guys, Jake Paul is USA. He's not from Thailand. But do you know what this guy has, but Jake Paul doesn't? A world championship. So how did Napa Kiatwanchai beat Hiroki Ioka? Considering Napa Kiatwanchai, his first 4 professional fights in August, September, and 2 in November, with 4 wins in a 6-round points decision, second round knockout, and 5th round knockout, with a resume of fighters with 0-2 in his first fight, his second fight, debut fighter, third fight, 0-2, and his fourth fight, a debut fighter, were lame. Then came in January, he wins the WBC International Minimumweight title against a guy with a 4-3-1 record, barely won the fight by split decision, and won again, retaining it in April against a guy with a 0-1-1 record. And that guy got it by majority decision, even though, in my opinion, the fight was dominated easily. He only had 6 professional fights, and he fought his 7th professional fight for the WBC belt. Guys, Napa Kiatwanchai is the first guy, well, technically one of the few other boxers in history to ever skip the division and go for a title. He is like Jake Paul from Thailand. He is the Jake Paul of boxing. And guys, I know what you guys are saying. I know what you people are going to say. There is another guy that actually became world champion in his 3rd professional fight, and he became champion Undisputed. I know. There is a story about that. But guys, Napa Kiatwanchai only had 6 professional fights in under a year, and he was like, well, I guess I'm ready for a title shot. That's ridiculous how you would have this guy have 6 fights against nobodies, and his last 2 fights barely became a waste of time, only to fight for the world title. Now, unfortunately, guys, the fight ended in a split decision draw with 114 to 113 for himself, 115 to 113 for Ioka, and 113 even, ending in a draw. But that didn't stop him. In September, he takes on a guy with a 13-6 record, wins by 3rd round TKO, and then goes back to Japan, only this time in Osaka, because the first fight was in the University Auditorium, where Ioka, well, I'm sure you already know, but still, I'm not going to get to that. But they go back this time to a different place in Osaka in November, 5 months later, to have a rematch. And guess what? In his 9th professional fight, Napa Kiatwanchai, I can't even say his name right anymore, defeated Hiroki Ioka by majority decision in 12 rounds by 2 judges, giving him 115 to 112 and 113 even for the WBC and lineal weight champion. Now that is crazy how this guy did that. And it's ridiculous because a guy winning that is ridiculous. And guys, people are saying that Jake Paul is stepping, hurdling over the hurdles for no reason, which he shouldn't. And I understand Jake Paul is not good, but guys, back in these days, these Asian boxers hurdled over the line before Jake Paul was even born. So let's not say that Jake Paul is not a boxer. These guys barely boxed a few fights only to fight for a title and won. Barely some fighters did that. So what did he do during his title reign? Well, in February of '89, he goes back to his country, defeats a guy with 6-2-2 record named John Arif, which all the judges had it favored 120 to 108, 20 to 7, but one judge had 116 to 119 to 106 for one judge giving it to a round, but the damage was already done. And then in June the 10th, he goes back to Osaka, Japan, in the same venue where he defeated Ioka for a third trilogy. And guess what? He ended it by knocking down Ioka in the 5th round. And yes, there is other moments, but he also knocked him down again in round 11 twice to retain the title. And the judges' scorecards were not there. 99 to 89, 99 to 90, 99 to 91. Yeah, for Ioka, he just didn't recover from his career. Like, he did win a fight against some nobody guy in February around that time and had that fight, lost. And then he tried to recover some fights at the time. Like, he went back in 1991, he went up a weight class to, I think he was fighting for a WBA belt at the time, which he won and defended a couple of times, but then lost it to the same guy he defeated. That was an undefeated 36-0 fighter in 92. And well, other fights later on. The rest of his career was history, but still. But for Napa Kyoanchanchi, after he retained that belt, technically he did not recover well, because in November he would fight against a guy named Hwan Choi Jun, a 19-2 fighter from South Korea. And surprising, just to let you guys know, Napa was traveling from country to country to retain his title, which was, or even fight for the title. So he went to Korea to fight in Choi's backyard. Good respect, but after 11 rounds of competition, the judges had it 105 to 101, 106 to 99, and 107 to 99, all favoring the South Korean fighter. But the Korean fighter didn't want to go for points. He wanted to go for a knockout. Yeah, so, but after having point abductions from round 7 for scores of 10-7 and a 10-8 score in round 1 for Choi, and how much knockout and beating he gave to his opponent, he ended it at 1 minute and 18 seconds in the final round. But that's not it for Napa Wanchanchi. No. Even though by 1990 he did actually win a fight against a nobody, but what happened to the WBC belt when he fought in June? Because, guys, the real story came a lot more different because, surprisingly, Choi would not hold on for the gold for that long because he would actually lose it in Tokyo Korakuen Hall in Japan against Hideyuki Osashi by round 9 KO. And Osashi's career was not that good. By 1986, he lost a couple fights. The second loss was for a WBC light flyweight champion. And then when the organization came, when he lost a rematch against the same fighter in 89 by knockout losses, he decided to go up to minimum weight, lose a couple pounds. He did got his win against Choi and won by a huge, good knockout win. And at that time was amazing. And then he fought against, you guess it, Napa Kyoanchanchi. And considering he did retain the belt by 116 to 112, 116 to 110, and 117 to 112, technically he wouldn't actually keep the title for long or even surpass 1990, because on October the 25th, 1990 would be a year that I think a lot of us fans would already know would be a definition of one of the greatest boxers in the lower weight class. I'm talking about the one and only fighter that went into the fight with a huge record of 26 wins, undefeated. He was a 24-year-old person. He went into that fight. He went to Raccoon Hall, and he did it. Now keep this in mind, guys. It was big. Too big. Too big for your britches. And even though this guy was defending his titles in Raccoon Hall, he just couldn't get the job done. This guy was dangerous. He brought him in the corner. He demolished him. This Mexican fighter, fun fact, was in his first world title. And this was the second time that he fought professionally outside of his native Mexico. And he did knock down Osashi down in round 4 with a jab following a straight right hand and almost immediately received a standing 8 count. And then in the 5th round, he set up this right hook and remained it on with one knee. Down goes Osashi. Count of 6, he receives an 8 count. And then a combination of jabs, straight rights, left hooks sent Osashi down for the 3rd time. Not even making it to his feet. Staggering. The referee had to stop it. Your WBC lineal weight champion, Ricardo Lopez. Finito. Ricardo Lopez, guys, made history. Now, guys, I will say, though, I would like to skip through this as much as I can. Because his resume, I will say, though, was not that good. Now, guys, Ricardo Lopez in 1991 would continue fighting in Asia, out of Mexico, until 92. He fought against a guy named Kimio Hirano, a 9-3-3 fighter, settled it with an 8-round TKO. And then he fights against Kyun Yun Lee, the person that I just talked about that won the Korean title back in '88 against the first Japanese fighter. Well, he came back to fight for the title. He went the distance in his country of Korea. Just the judges' scorecards were not there. 116, 112, not bad. 118 to 110. Okay, something's up. 120 to 107. Yeah, you guys can tell which one is accurate and which one's not. All we know is Ricardo Lopez detained the title. And by 1992, he'll go back to Mexico to fight fighters with 27 2-2 fighter named Pretty Boy Lucas. And he demolished that fight by 120 to 106 by 2 of the scorecards and 1 of the 20 and to 104 by 1 judge. And then defeats a guy with a 10-2-1 record named Kitty Kasem and settled it with a round 5 KO victory. His win against Rocky Lin in Raccoon Hall in October that year of 92 settled it with a round 2 KO victory, which is surprisingly because the fight was so devastating that when Lopez returned to Tokyo in the sight of his 2-year anniversary after his first world title win, he ended it with a big left hook in the 2nd round, which sent Rocky Lin down and to his back, and with him touching the mat and getting knocked down to avoid. But he just couldn't survive that round because he got lunged by a left hand that set him straight down, flat on his back, and the referee ran over, beginning the count, only removing Lin's mouthpiece because technically he was dazed. He was dazed. And so it just goes to show you, considering Rocky Lin was an undefeated 14-0 fighter, he had no business fighting against a guy that dangerous like Ricardo. Ricardo came on to fight against a 6-0 fighter in South Korea named Kwang Soo-ho, and that guy ended it with a round 9 TKO victory. And then he fights against a guy with 15-1-1 record in his country of Mexico named Samon Sorjanturong, and ended it by a round 2 TKO. Even when he was knocked down in the 1st round, he just didn't have enough to make it to the 2nd round. And then Lopez retains his title by taking on Todo Pong Sawang, a 4-0 fighter from Thailand. And the guy's record was not that big. This guy decided to do a Jake Paul. And when I looked up his resume were 4-8, 21-8-2, 24-5, better, and 21-17-4. Well, at least the resume is far better than Jake Paul. But even though the guy went 10 rounds, but he couldn't survive round 11 because Lopez finished him. Yeah, can't argue about that. And then he goes to the USA and Caesars Tahoe Staten Island in Nevada by Cedric Kushner promotion, because this was during a time of Cedric Kushner and such, so keep this in mind. So he met on with Cedric Kushner in the USA during this time. And keep this in mind, guys, there were some promoters and other people. So when Cedric Kushner helped him on to fight against a guy named Manny Melchor for a 25-19-4 record, which Lopez dominated the 11 rounds and knocked him out in round 11 by KO. Guess what happened later by the end of December 1993? Several months later, on May the 7th, 1994, he would fight against Kermin Guardia, a 21-0 fighter. And he goes 12 rounds of decision by 117-110 of 2 scores and 119-109 by winning it dominationally. But keep that in mind, guys. Lopez fought that in the MGM Grand, meaning that he was with promoter Don King. So after 36 professional fights, his 37th professional fight came on the hands of Don King. And I'm sure Don King wanted to put this guy over or take his money or so, but I'm sure he was trying to end his career because that was a failure. Because, guys, coming out of nowhere on the month, because on September that same year, he takes on a 10-0 fighter named Surachai, another Taiwan fighter with a 10-0 record, which would end it by 1 minute and 53 seconds in the first round. So this was during a time where Ricardo Lopez and Don King demolished competition. In November, he fought against a guy named Javier Varquez, a 37-16-1 fighter, ended it with round 8 TKO, and I almost ended a Spider's life by Don King Promotions, which that was also the same night, because fun fact, guys, November the 12th, 1994, in the Toros, Mexico City in the Plaza D, was actually on site of the first fight of Terry Norris versus Luis Santana. So, yeah, Ricardo Lopez was there during his 39th professional fight. Amazing. But what happened then? Well, in December, a month later, because he was just fighting nonstop at this moment, he took on a 13-4-1 fighter named Yumil Caraballo. And considering last month his win against Javier Varquez was a round 8 TKO, it didn't stop him to fight a month later to go for a round 1 TKO again against Yamil in Mexico again. And considering Don King was there promoting out the fight for him, he would later fight against a 30-2 fighter named Andy Tabanaz, which ended by round 12 TKO. All the judges were scoring it. All wins were for all of the rounds were for Ricardo. Now, you people are probably wondering, is there any of these fighters? Do we know who these fighters are? Technically, Kermin Guardia and Mostui Todo Pongswang and other undefeated fighters like Rocky Lin and Salmon Sorjatrong, they were fighters that were like tier type 3 half-star fighters on the list on BoxRec. A lot of these fights in 92, 93, and 94 for Lopez and 95 were fighters that were just 1 star, 2 stars. They didn't have great resumes. So that's how hard it was for Lopez's career to fight against legit competition back then. Yes, the minimum weight division was new, but then in March 16th, 1996, he would take on Ala Villamor, a 29 1-1 fighter in the MGM Grand. And this Filipino fighter didn't have a lot of a resume during his early year of 1989 or 1990, except having the Filipinos game minimum weight champion. But after having a draw against someone in 91, but then having a couple other wins, which weren't that much of competition, but he was ranked on high alerts considering some of his resume wasn't that good until he lost the IBF World Minimum Weight Champion in 1993 against someone, made him a bigger threat, but his last 5 fights after his first loss were nobodies. So for the reason why he was ranked as a 3-star fighter in this fight against Lopez on BoxRec, we won't know why, because a lot of the resume Lopez was fighting at the time were not a lot of competition there. That's how bad it was. And to be honest, this fight ended in round 8 by KO when Lopez brought him down and ended it. And the guy never boxed again. And even though that was the same night where Mike Tyson defeated Frank Bruno, that same venue for the WBC belt, and Keith Holmes defeating Quincy Taylor by knockout as well, considering all of those other fights and also the light flyweight title as well. But considering that, not much of competition to say about Ricardo. His other fights in 96 were not fights to talk about. In June, he fought against a guy named Precha, a 7-3 fighter in Indio, Fantasy Springs, and got a round 3 KO win against this Taiwan fighter. He fought against a 10-2 fighter, a 2-1 fighter in MGM Graham again by round 6 TKO on November of that year, which the guy was from South Africa and nothing there. And then scores a round 1 TKO a month later against Myung Sub Park, a 11-4 fighter, also fighting in Fantasy Springs by first round TKO, which that guy was from South Africa. And yeah, nothing much. So his fights in 96, including the Ala Villamor fight, a lot of the fighters just never had that much of resume, which is bad. By 1997, his 2 fights against Moncol Charlene and Alex Sanchez aren't much of fights to talk about. His round 12 unanimous decision win against Charon in March in the Hilton Hotel was a dominated fight. His win against Alex Sanchez was interesting because the 25-1 fighter, which the guy actually lost his first fight early on. Well, not early on. He lost his first fight in that same year in February against Edgar Cordes, against a nobody, and for some reason how he lost it. But around that time, he was already the WBO minimum weight champion back in 93 when the guy was retaining his belt but taking on nobodies. And he lost his first fight in a non-title fight only to retain it a month later against someone, which he shouldn't have, only to fight against Lopez, and he got brought down in round 2 and knocked down in round 5, and that was all she wrote in Madison Square Garden. And on August the 23rd, 1998, that took place, considering this was Lopez retaining and now unifying the titles. This took place during the Felix Trinidad defeating Troy Waters by first round KO. And also Cesar Green defeating William Joppy, another guy that had an undefeated record. And, well, technically, yeah, there was a lot of crazy moments that day, including this fly. Where is he? I lost him. But anyway, guys, that's about the end of this podcast. Because 1998 would be the end of the Ring Magazine belt. Because at this time, guys, the WBO belt was not much of a major belt. Also, guys, In March of 1997, in Mexico of the Distrito Federal of Mexico Fifth City, of the Plaza de Toros, Mexico, 5-time title defender, WBA champion, took on 21-time title defender, Lineal and WBC champion, Lopez. Sadly, after 7 rounds of brutal competition, the fight went on hard and dangerous enough. We go to the 7th round where both guys get hurt. After having a little bit of a controversial moment, Lopez was knocked down in round 2 for one of the few times. Alvarez lost a point in round 7 due to an accidental headbutt. And then they go to the scorecards because of that injury. The knockout and the point abduction was a change. One judge had it 67-64 for Lopez. Rosendo Alvarez, undefeated 24-0, had it 68-64. But one judge had it 66 even, a technical draw. So this time they left to go to the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas on November the 13th that same year. This time, the real winner by split decision, winning the fight outright with 116-114, 116-112 by 2 judges' scores, with one of the other judges scoring it favor for the other guy, 115-113. Winner by split decision, unified champion, Ricardo Lopez. And those 2 fights and that win of his against Rosendo Alvarez is one of the greatest wins of his entire career. Which, in fairness, it's his best title defense win ever. Like, his win against Hideyuki Ohashi was a good title defense win in his winning his first title. And even though his resume was lousy in some of his fights, so he just got lucky until in 1989, 1990, he had better resume there. But considering how Lopez didn't get a lot of competition, just goes to show you, this is crazy. So what happened? Well, guys, by the start of 1999, Lopez took a full 1 year off until he fought against Will Grisby for the IBF World Light Flyweight title. He won by 12 rounds in the Hilton, and then it took him 14 months off until December of 2000 against a random guy named Anucha Potong in Mandalay Bay to retain the belt by round 3 TKO. And then on September the 14th, or so we thought the fight was going to take place, but on September the 29th, weeks after 9/11 happened, Madison Square Garden, they promoted out the show with the Felix Trinidad versus Bernard Hopkins Undisputed title tournament, where Lopez, Zolani, Patello, and the referee, Arthur Mercanti Sr., refereed his final professional fight and Lopez's final fight. Fun fact, they actually said that his record win at that time was 49-0-1. So I think some scores, decades or years later, someone said that, wait, there was actually one record, that professional fight, that was never counted for Lopez. So back then, they thought it was 49-0. Well, guess what? Round 8, he wins by KO and gets his 50th win. And then some years later, he gets his other win. But you know what's crazy? Considering Ricardo officially announced his retirement for the press conference in November of 2002, his last bout, and the 81-year-old Arthur Mercanti Sr. would never ref again after this, and Zolani Patello, well, he would never box again until 2005 with a couple fights that were losses against nobodies. Should have stayed retired. Still, this was an end of an era for boxing, and technically, what else can you say about that entire show? I mean, it was a knockout. Good. But technically, guys, those last 3 fights were Lopez's career, but technically, they were not the minimum weight champion. What happened? Well, when Lopez stripped all his titles to go for the light flyweight title, the WBC belt would be fought again in September against Wandi Singwancha for the interim championship belt around that time. And surprisingly, he won out the belt outright. And, well, he was the last to win that belt against Jovi Amancho, which was a non-title fight because he originally was the WBC vacant champion in August against Rocky Lin. The Rocky win by majority decision August the 23rd, 98, and retained it against Wolf Tamitsu in May of 94 by round 12 knockout. And sadly, by February, he lost against Jose Antonio Anguari by majority decision. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now. Because, guys, this is sad. Because after that loss against his championship at the time, the WBC belt was the only thing there. But the lineal weight title, ladies and gentlemen, disappeared when Lopez retired his belts in 99 of September the 28th. It is what it is, guys, but when you look back at it, it was an interesting story to talk about, and that's what it is. But to be honest, guys, just betwixt you and me, guys, there's still some history out there that we have to be careful. Because, guys, next time on the Mr. GLOAT podcast, we are going to review the second half of the WBC belt. We've already reviewed the lineal weight title with the WBC today, but tomorrow we're going to review the second half of the 21st century of the WBC. So with that being said, see you next time.